Expectations are sky high at Ohio State this year, and they're kind of warranted when you look at what returned this offseason, what they brought in via the recruiting trail on the transfer portal. It's like that scene in Avengers Endgame where everyone is lining up to take on Thanos, and there is Captain Ryan Day saying, "Buckeyes, assemble." But everything starts and ends with the quarterback position. And in my opinion, yes, they did get better by moving off of Kyle McCord and bringing in Will Howard from Kansas State. But there's this connotation right now saying that Will Howard is being slandered. His name is being dragged through the mud. He's not being compared to one of the great quarterbacks in 2024. To which I say, what is your definition of slander? Because I just think that we're all on the same page that Will Howard may be in a great situation, and it doesn't mean he's an elite quarterback, to say the least. So let's go ahead and discuss today. But if you're new here, my name is Cole Thompson, and I talk college football daily. So if this is the type of content you enjoy, make sure that you hit the like button and the subscribe button. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on Will Howard going into 2024. Tell your friends, family, mortal enemies, best of bros, college football fans, and Ohio State faithful everywhere about this channel, because we're on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking about college football, but also the #1 college football here on YouTube, the #1 college football community. Make sure also that you're subscribed to me on all of my social media platforms at Mr. Cole Thompson. Link right down there below. And if you have a question that you want read live on air, slide in the DMs at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter or email me, colethompsonwriting@gmail.com. So the narrative right now that's going around for a lot of fans is that Will Howard is basically Kyle McCord 2.0. Will Howard is basically not going to be that much more of an upgrade in terms of what is going to be the style of quarterback play. Will Howard is going to produce similar results, which means we're going to get similar results going into a pivotal year where we got to go ahead and actually go deep into the playoffs. How many of you guys have actually watched Will Howard play football? How many of you have actually seen him when he was in Manhattan, Kansas, finding a way to lead Kansas State to its first Big 12 title in almost 2 decades? Because he plays nothing like Kyle McCord. Nothing at all. One is 6'4", one is 6'2", one was a statue that stands tall like the Statue of Liberty up in New York City, and the other one can boot, scoot, and boogie like Josh Allen in the open field. With that being said, it's egregious to say that these two are the exact same. But what isn't really egregious is saying that this is a massive upgrade in terms of consistency. When you look at what Will Howard was able to do during his time in Kansas State, it's promising. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of belief that, yes, he was a sole proprietor to why this team found its rhythm underneath Chris Klieman. And you are getting an upgrade with wide receivers, with running back room, with offensive line. You're getting a better play caller that maybe caters towards your strengths than Chip Kelly. You're being evaluated at the highest end of talent in the Big Ten. All that aside, it's great. But you do realize that what I just said, you're not playing with 3 stars anymore. You're playing with 5 stars. You're not being blocked by a couple of maybe NFL talents in the offensive line. You're getting blocked by guys that will find their way on Sundays. You're not playing in an offensive system that maybe caters to some strengths. You're playing in one that absolutely is going to bring the best version out of you, which means expectations are going to be higher, which means the scrutiny level is also going to grow in the process. And that's not to say that Will Howard can't be good. In fact, I would say going into this season, Will Howard, without question, is a top 25 quarterback in the game. And you would be foolish to argue with me otherwise. I mean, look at what he did last season. Just after guiding Kansas State to a comeback win against TCU, he goes into Austin, plays against the Longhorns, the defending Big 12 champion Longhorns, and he balls out. Rough start, good finish, recapitalizes, regroups, finds his inertia, gets 4 touchdowns, 300-plus passing yards, and leads them to overtime. And if not for a terrible play call on 4th down, maybe Kansas State is a big reason why Texas isn't in the college football playoff. And then we don't have this argument about who belonged in that number 4 spot. And that would have been on Will Howard. The other thing is that you can't say that he isn't a good quarterback because of look at who wanted him. USC at one point. Yeah, Lincoln Riley knows a thing or two about quarterback play. Miami at one point. Yeah, they upgraded at their quarterback as well with Cam Ward. But at one moment, they were really interested in adding in Will Howard. You also had countless other teams. Kentucky was involved at one point. There were conversations that potentially other programs around the ACC were going to be involved. Florida State, Mike Norvell wanted him. So, yes, there is a reason to say he is a good quarterback. what is this slander part that I'm still trying to get my brain around? Is slander saying that we don't think that if you put him at USF's roster or on Tulane's roster or on UCLA's roster, that he'd be able to put the same results up there with everybody else? Because if you tell me I get to go put Jackson Dart, I get to go put Quinn Ewers, I get to go put Carson Beck on one of those teams, and I think that they're going to be better fit for whatever brand of offense they run, yeah, that's the way I kind of feel. That's not slander. That's just reality. Doesn't mean that they're a bad player. It just means that there are some limitations. There are some things that are never going to change. There are some things that are just going to be about who they are that will always be a part of their story. It doesn't make them bad. It just makes it real. You would never tell me for a second that you would take probably Will Howard over Cam Ward or over Jackson Dart or over Carson Beck or over Quinn Ewers. Shedeur Sanders, even, for as much flack as he get, you would take a guy that last season with no offensive line and no run game averaged nearly 300 passing yards per contest. You would. You'd be lying if you said otherwise. And you look at Ohio State. Yes, they have a great offensive line. They also have great wide receivers, but they're unproven, Cole. You know who else was unproven? Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Njigba, Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin, every single one that came through that program and then eventually became a superstar on Sundays all started off as unknown commodities. They were high-profile players. Jeremiah Smith, #1 wide receiver in the country this past recruiting cycle. How about Carnell Tate, top 5 wide receiver in the recruiting cycle the year before? Emeka Egbuka, at one point this time last year, we were talking about him not being a first-round pick, a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. Oh, and you also upgrade at running back by bringing in Quinshon Judkins, 2-time 1,000-yard rusher in the SEC. You think that he's going to be able to handle Big Ten country? I would say so. Travion Henderson is back, so that gives you another complimentary piece in the run game. Chip Kelly, who does know quarterbacks better than most people and has evaluated talent before, is going to be your OC. You also get Ryan Day, who's sticking his neck out on the line for you. He has to believe in something. You're in a great situation. And the part that always gets forgotten about, you have a top 5 defense that's going to get you the ball back almost every other drive. So what is the slander that we're talking about? You mean he's in a great situation to where the expectations are going to rise. There's quality competition behind him. So if he doesn't go ahead and throw for, say, 4,000 yards and runs for 9 touchdowns and adds in a little bit more consistency on third down with his legs, that he's overrated? Yeah, I think at that point it's warranted. It doesn't mean that he's a bad player. It just means, simply put, there's reason to be skeptically optimistic about his game. If Will Howard is a part of a game-winning championship drive against Georgia in the national championship, is he the reason? Or is it the wide receivers? Or is it the run game? Or is it exceptional blocking up front? Or is it defense? You know, Kirk Cousins is a perfect example of all this in the NFL. Kirk is probably a top 12 quarterback in the league. Nobody would argue that. But you look at what he had last season in Minnesota, you expected them to at least be somewhat of a contender before he went down with a torn ACL or a torn Achilles. And now he goes to Atlanta with a great offensive line, a revamped defense, quality weapons, a good run game, and a great offensive system. The reason the Atlanta Falcons are supposed to be good in the NFC South, because they play in a weaker division, is also because they have the pieces to finally contend. That's kind of the same thing with Will Howard. Takes nothing away from his game. Still a top 15, 20 passer in the league. But that doesn't count as slander, in my opinion. It counts as expectations and reality of what a player is. If he ends up panning out and throwing for an egregious amount of yards, he ends up having an exceptional season, top 5 in numbers in every Big Ten category, he's a good player. But if you put him at USF, or if you put Jackson Dart in this offense, or you put Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel or somebody else that is another high-profile name, Garrett Green at West Virginia, if they put up those numbers, is that not as impressive as what Will Howard is doing? Because I would take every single one of those quarterbacks over Will Howard. Just because you're in a great situation does not mean that you are an elite playmaker. So if that's the type of slander that we're talking about, okay, I will slander Will Howard's name. I think that he is a good quarterback and can be a reason why Ohio State wins the national championship. But he won't be the reason. There's a lot of quarterbacks that you're going to turn to on 4th down to get that play. Is Will Howard probably your first phone call? Let's be honest. Probably not. But go ahead and let me know in the comments section. Does Will Howard deserve the slander that's going against him? Is he just a good quarterback in a great situation to where the numbers are supposed to back it up? Make sure that also you tell your friends, family, mortal enemies, best of bros about this channel because we're on the race to become the #1 college football community here on YouTube. Like the video, hit the comments section. Also, make sure you're following me on all the social media platforms at Mr. Cole Thompson. And if you want a question, turn it into a one-off video, email me, ColeThompsonWriting@gmail.com. I am Cole Thompson, and until next time, folks, later. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. That's awesome. Thank you so much. But before you leave, make sure that you hit subscribe. And if you want to check out any of our other great work, make sure you click on one of the videos here. Am I pointing at the right spot? I'm not entirely sure. I'm really not.